Hello everybody, welcome to another one of my photography videos. This one will be about the photographer's eye. But before I start explaining all that, I give you the opportunity to quickly push the pause button and then you can do the test, play the game and try to guess which animals all of these eyes belong to. Now it's a little bit difficult, I must honestly admit that I thought a lion had a very narrow slitted eye instead of a round one, and so does a tiger, but it doesn't once you dive into it. So I gave you that one for free, and you can count half a point if you don't know the animal exactly, but you can guess whether it's a bird or a fish, etc. Okay, without further ado, since the world doesn't wait for those who don't push pause, here we go. What does it mean, the photographer's eye? I'm not talking about an exposition or a book about it. When does somebody have a good photographic eye? Does that mean you have to have very sharp vision? Well, it helps if you can see everything which happens around you. Then you can see the little tiger boy here in the window, for example. Remember, photography is either making a picture or taking a picture, and to be able to take it home with you, you have to see what's happening around you. So it's good to have a keen eye, whether it is for interesting things happening, like all these people behind each other with their dog, or a strange shaped roof, or some interesting reflections. But in general, it's about the ability of somebody to make interesting photos. Anything which will capture the eye of the viewer and please him will be an interesting photo. And you need to have that eye on the world to be able to make them. So is it just somebody with a very intelligent mind for images and making images? We shouldn't confuse it with the mind's eye. The mind's eye is the virtual image you see in your brain, not in the real world. If you want to make a painting, you make it all from scratch. And if you want to make a photo composition, like for example this one symbolizing, for example, that people are leaving the natural world and entering a constructed world of who knows what, then you can do that with your imagination, your so-called mind's eye. But we're talking here about taking pictures of the real world. Actually, in fact, the scientists have studied that these two belong together, because actually our visual system starts with very simple calculations, and then these integrate with some kind of idea you already have about the world, which comes from your higher brain center. So you always imagine what you are seeing and verify it, so that helps. So it's also not about your specific interest or your specific view on the world, although of course if you have an interest in, let's say, nature photography, you can take the viewer to all kind of different worlds he would otherwise never experience. And like for example this disco dancing snail, it seems to like to turn into circles here, or the city of Osnabrück. Actually, the more you look for something, the more you get to see it. Maybe some of you remember their first driving lesson. When you started out, you saw only random stuff and you really didn't see the road as a separate entity you have to focus on. The same for if you get an interest in balloons or something, or numbers, suddenly you see numbers everywhere. So actually, you have to learn to see something interesting in just everywhere, even the dullest places. So most people will just see a tree. Well, there's a tree over there, who cares, there's a tree, it's not interesting. But actually, if you look at it more closely, you see that it's some very interesting pattern around it of tree rings of mushrooms. How did that happen? I don't know. The same here. Is it just some trees in the distance? Or is it an interesting pattern of dark trees contrasting with a bright sky? Of course, you can ask the question, is everybody seeing this? Some of the viewers will, others won't. That can be the problem of the artist, that he makes something nice, but maybe he's the only one who sees it. So maybe also the viewers should need some training to start seeing interesting things, and that's called visual intelligence or visual literacy. It's quite a difficult thing. if you say to people, what did you see here and there? Usually they see only the main stuff. Because if we live in the world, we try to, there's millions of things going on, we try to focus on the most important thing that we really need to know. The tiger in the bushes that is going to eat you, and not all the rest. And not whether there's a rabbit somewhere else. But your visual intelligence will see a lot of stuff, especially in images which are already there. So the brain of the photographer is constantly thinking visually, and he's thinking about the things you need in a picture, which is a story, which is an emotion. So here, for example, I had a nice trick of imaging this crane. It's just a dull thing, but you also see already foreshadowed, literally, who is using the crane. Of course, these people are standing at the end of the crane. I just imaged their shadow. Makes it an interesting picture. Actually, or this, where did I get it? What on earth is this? So you see things which are there, although for most people they aren't there. And then you get an interesting picture, because remember, a photo is not reality. Again, it's not a three-dimensional world you can walk through in all directions and experience it in a very filtered, limited way. No, it's just a square that you take from somewhere. And then that gets a new life. That little rectangular thing. And actually, I didn't do any computer photo processing in software on this. You can also do that, of course, and make even more interesting pictures, but that's another thing. We are talking here about the photographer's eye for things that exist in the world. Your end picture, if it's a true one, or your starter, if you want to do more with it. So actually, when we present it, even the simplest of objects or images can become something interesting. Take this dull object, if you enlarge that and you put it on the wall as a big poster, then it will get some artistic essence by itself. Or here, these houses, you could photograph them in many different ways. Not all of them would be interesting, not all angles would be interesting. But by selecting a photography direction and a frame, etc., now you get this interesting repetitive pattern and you get a special kind of image. You select it. So by doing all these realizations, walking through the world, understanding it, getting your aha moment, and then capturing it in the right manner, of course, again according to your ideas and preferences, and then you capture it in an image, actually the viewer gets to see more or less the world a little bit like how you see it, how you want to represent it, and so on and so forth. And maybe lots of people walk through the street, but the composition of this concrete news pillar and this house makes it an interesting view. Or just one of the houses, it gets a life of its own. So you choose how to present. One of the things which we learn in some of the videos is the viewpoint. I could have photographed this house from here. Most people would stand in front of it, shoot only the house, but I shot it across a bridge. The same with here, the Münster town hall. Usually people stand in front of it and they try to shoot it. It's a big house though, but I shot it from very far away, all across a big square with a telelens, and then it gets a different view on the matter. The same for this here, shot at a very steep angle to show all the interesting staircases. Or you shoot the world behind through a frame, or you shoot behind the reed. The last thing you have to understand is that you're actually not just taking a record for the future of some scene again, but as I said, you're making a 2D picture representation, simplification, essence, and so on of that scene. So you make a 2D picture which contains colored shapes, like these black rectangles and so on. So you need to master the so-called picture elements, what makes an image. Textures, angles, sizes of objects, 3D, 2D, and so on. We will be talking about that also in more detail in several videos. So here, for example, instead of walking into the market, I know that some photographers say if you aren't right in front of it, you aren't close enough. but I shot it from a bird's eye perspective. Or here, I liked the balconies, and then if you shoot it like this, it gets a almost expressionistic, exaggerated style. And the other one is, for example, pattern. Pattern can be all these nice chairs in contrast with the background, or all the lines here of the masts of the ships, or here you have the contrast of the lines of the trees with the structure of the pillar. Or you will be looking at light effects, or you will be looking at image qualities, which are local properties, like for example the blur, how sharp an image is. People think that should be sharp, but it can be fantastic if it isn't. And you can compare that a little bit like brush strokes. This is kind of an impressionistic way of photographing it. But I didn't do anything special in software. You just need to make your imaging, your capturing element, your lens a little bit blurry, for example with water, or there are filters that you can do in front of it, Vaseline, nets, all kind of these things. And so on, and so on, and so on. So, that's it. Oh no, wait a minute. I still have to give you the answers of the animals. So here they are. These are all birds. Here we get a bat, a lemur, which is a kind of monkey, another monkey. So all these are the mammals. Then we have a crocodile, a python, iguana, so these are reptiles. Here we have our fish, and here we have the birds again. And this one wasn't actually a real eye. It's what butterflies use on their wings to pretend they are a bigger animal. So, I hope you learned something from this short video. This one I kept short because not everybody wants a long one. If you want to have more details about all the stuff, watch my longer videos also. Come back when there are new ones. Tell everybody you know who likes photography. And I hope to see you again later on. And if you like it, then please subscribe. Bye guys.